Welcome to episode 6 of Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mr. Peter Crable.
Hey.
Welcome back, Mr. Krabs.
I gotta tell you, it's nice to be back.
This reference might be lost on our audience. It certainly will be lost on you, but Mr. Crable looks like Grizzly Adams right now. That was
I was hoping I would get a nice compliment on the beard.
Do you know who Grizzly Adams was?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Looks like the Brawny Man.
It was a popular
I don't
set.
think the Brawny Man
70s
actually
show.
has a beard, though.
It's a weak beard.
Yeah.
I think it's glorified 5 o'clock shadow.
Mr. Krabs can grow an impressive beard.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah.
And of course, back in the studio, Mr. C.H. Siddons, you're
I'm
live.
I won't be able to talk as much this time.
No more phoning in. Yeah, you did. You were. I think we agreed that without me present, you were much more loquacious.
And I think you felt bad about it.
I did, because it did show the negative impact I have on you when we're together.
But you already knew that.
In the studio. I
You
know.
suck the air out of the room sometimes.
I know I do. That's what hosts are supposed to do.
And principals.
Anyway, we're glad to be back, folks. We took a little bit of a hiatus. Mr. Siddons had Frida,
Holy moly.
who's doing well, right?
Yep, she's doing great.
Yep, she's coming along. She almost
great.
2 months old.
She already is 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Showed us a picture of her little baby burrito in the crib.
We call her it's the Ferrito.
He's the Frida.
I think they have her sleeping in a twin bed though, which
I know that.
I'm not quite sure about.
It's actually a California King
there you
crib.
go.
Well, for our listeners, Mr. Siddons has Frida on the crib cam right now, right?
The parent stalker cam.
And
Yeah.
And it gets
hacked.
It's a little creepy in the black and white, don't you think?
Especially when she looks up.
And her eyes like
Oh,
glow.
yeah,
it's like,
eyes.
it's like Ghostbusters 2, like the
I
eyes.
see
You
you.
know? Ooh.
That's
Ghostbusters 2. Ooh, I didn't
Did you like that reference?
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody ever saw that movie.
It's a great movie. I love that movie.
It's funny.
It's not as good as Ghostbusters 1.
How could it be?
Those were right.
But when they got possessed, they took over, and Janosch, his name was,
Janosch.
and he went down the hallway, and the lights were out because the power went out, and he had a laser eyes with the yellow, and I'll never forget it as a kid. It was the most terrifying thing.
Were you alive when Ghostbusters 2 came out?
1989.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
What do you think that was rated? PG-13?
No, it's-
PG.
PG.
I don't think
Okay.
PG-13 was invented.
And those-
Thank you. I was going to say, Mr. Crable, where were you born yesterday? PG-13 just came along like 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it's fairly
Yeah,
recent.
it's fairly new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not 20. It was like mid-90s.
And Frida's doing well.
She's doing great.
Sleeping
Yeah.
through the night almost.
Almost, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
Good sleeper.
congratulations again. We had lots of questions from our listeners on Twitter and via different forms of communication about how Frida was doing, and people want to see pictures. But
Wow,
that's not a part of the game.
We've disrupted the social media game in my family.
Oh, okay. What's that about?
Well, some people in my family want to post pictures on Facebook
Without
and social
permission.
Right.
Are you guys being that couple?
We have put a complete block.
Our generation, Mr. Dodd, is a lot more sensitive to exploiting our children for a few likes,
For a few
hearts on Instagram,
For a few dopamine hits,
a few RTs on Twitter.
Hey, listen, I hear you. I agree. I mean, I'm completely shocked by how appalling Generation X people are on social media.
It's boomers.
No.
Generation Xers are
No.
by and large, they are mostly the people I've talked to. They're like, oh, that makes sense. But the boomers are really
They're
dismayed
proud
by it.
grandparents.
They are, and you know what? To his credit, my dad was
He took it well.
he took it well.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're glad Frida's doing well. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Ed's Not Dead PC. And of course, check out our website, edsnotdead.com. As always, Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. It's good to be back. I missed you guys.
I know.
It was the first time we've gotten together, and
We've tried a few times, and schedules have not aligned. The stars have not aligned, unfortunately.
There has been a clamor out there for the return of Ed's Not Dead.
As
I'm
there
getting texts left and right
As
about
there
it.
should be.
Yep. And we're watching Wild Card Weekend. We're watching some football while we record. This is kind of nice in the studio.
Yeah.
Right?
I like it. Casey's, I couldn't
So
tear him away.
good. So good.
Any show feedback? Any updates?
Well, can we pause a little bit and talk about my my Christmas gift from Jim Patterson.
Oh,
What'd
please
you
do.
From 1T.
What'd you get from 1T?
I got 3 Green Bay Packer onesies in
Nice.
different colors,
The-
pink, yellow, and green,
Those are good for Frida.
and a T-shirt, a Green Bay Packer T-shirt for me, which I was like, oh, that was generous of him.
Yeah, it's nice.
And then I texted him and said thank you and all this other stuff, and he said that's for our bet.
What bet?
What was your bet?
Well, I don't know if you know, you were on the group message with all our gaggle of people, but
The group text.
it was before. I think it was around the election of 2016, and my bet was that he would be serving for a term and a half, and Mr. Patterson said no, he'd be out within 2 years.
Oh, so he paid up.
He paid up his bet,
Okay.
and every
Nice.
time
Look at that.
a news story would come by, he would send me, because I had to get him Packers gear if I lost.
Yeah.
He would send me like obnoxious Green Bay Packer logo filled items, like a car with a Green Bay Packer logo. Every time a news thing would
That's a
come
good
out.
bet. I like that bet.
Yeah, I won.
Does he listen to the pod?
I don't know. We should call him.
I think we've tried that bit before.
Yeah.
No, we
it's-
don't want to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wondered whether he listens to the pod. Well, some people listen to the pod, like friend of the show, Luba,
Yes.
who sent me a very nice email. First of all, congratulations to Mr. Siddons on becoming a father.
Aw, thank you.
Thanks to Luba. I binge listened the entire season 3 while cooking for Thanksgiving. Discussions about whether we overprogram our kids and the role of Khan Academy in public education were great. As a parent, I see a need for balance between demanding and rigorous academic curriculum, what her kids get in magnet programs, and after-school activities that enrich her kids' lives. She thinks that Khan Academy could be ideal for the flipped classroom teaching style, where teachers have an active role in making sure that students are mastering the subjects and learning to recognize what they do and don't understand. As always, looking forward to new episodes. Thank you, Luba.
It's very nice.
you,
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yep. So she's been a loyal listener since
She
the
has
beginning.
been. Yeah. We
Yep.
appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks.
I have some Twitter feedback just from today.
Yep. What do you got?
So someone on Twitter, a high school teacher, I believe in Oklahoma, if Druin OK is to be believed, she asked for any great math ed podcasts in terms of like must hear this one episode. And friend of the show, Carissa June, recommended ours, How to Make Math Teachers Mad, which was a couple episodes ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was.
I'm
it was
proud
a
of
good
that
one.
title, by the way.
That was a good one. Yeah, I liked it.
that was good.
Sometimes titles, I'm like, all right, and then this particular one was like, ooh, I like.
It's provocative.
Very, very. So appreciate that.
That's
That
awesome.
was it.
And
was
that
a-
particular
was a
discussion was
major-
about San Francisco public schools.
It was about
And,
algebra,
and the collapsing of algebra sections.
right? For nobody in middle school could take algebra
right,
anymore.
right,
Yep.
right.
I don't even remember that segment.
It was like 16 years ago, I think.
I think it might have been the season 1, or episode 1 of this season.
It was very early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
We're at episode 6, and it is 2020.
it
Oh
is.
my goodness.
So, in honor of 2020 and the controversy that's surrounding the idea that we are in a new decade, are we speaking of
yes.
math, are we in a new decade, or do we not start the
No,
new decade
we're in a
until
new decade.
We're in a new decade.
2021?
Come on.
Well, that's
All
a
right.
silly debate.
I'm
All right.
provincial. It starts with a 2 now,
Okay.
not
Right.
a 1.
Right.
20s.
It's
pretty-
a new decade.
The 20s.
Basic.
Right.
Yeah, but a very smart young man who listens to the show told me that we're not in a new decade because there's no zero.
Oh, jeez.
So I didn't argue with
What does that mean? There's no zero.
Well, you don't start counting until you get to 1, I guess.
Oh, jeez. These people and their rules.
So we're in the ether right now. We're in no decade.
Yeah, it's just
I guess we're in
empty
that.
shell.
There's a little. All right, so if we are in a new decade, then we have to look back
You
on
have
the
to.
teens.
You got to.
Matt Barnum and Gabrielle Lamar LeMay have a really, I think, fascinating article, and it was reinforcing for me because a lot of what they talk about in this piece in Chalk Beat could have been stolen from our 3 seasons of
Maybe it was.
Yes.
We don't
Could
know
have
that
been.
for a
Could have
fact.
been.
Ed's Not Dead. So their title of the article is 10 Stories That Defined K-12 Education in the 2010s. Why can't we call them the teens?
Teens. Let's call it the teens.
Are you ready?
That's a little tricky with the 2010 because 10 is not a teen. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so we're gonna look back. We're gonna talk about these
A retrospective.
a retrospective, and I guess our first summer of the show was 2017, right?
Oh. Yeah, I think so.
2017.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
And
yeah.
the three of us started working together in 2012.
2011.
2011.
It was 2011.
So that's
It's the decade of
That's
Ed's Not
pre-
Dead.
that's
pretty- that's-
Before it was a thing.
Yeah.
that is pretty perfect that
Yeah.
we work together and have had a professional association either working or through Ed's Not Dead for the decade.
For a better part of the decade. For a plurality of the decade.
All right, so here's a look back at the 10 storylines that shaped K-12. You ready?
Yes.
do it.
Number one.
So hold on. Are we just listing them right now, or are we going to go through them? What's the rule?
I'm going to read them, and then you guys are going to wax philosophical on
Should
them.
we
okay?
have a time limit on this?
No.
I'm going to give you wild hand gesticulations when it's time to move on to the
I think we
next
should have like an
topic.
alarm that should stop us
All
from
right.
talking.
Can I read them?
Okay, sorry.
please.
Jeez.
The racial makeup of America's students has continued to change. America's teachers, not so much. In 2014, students of color made up the majority of public school students for the first time in U.S. history. However, 80% of America's public school educators are white, a figure that has barely changed in decades. They go on to cite that there has been a flurry of recent research and evidence that suggests or that indicates that students of color certainly benefit when they have teachers of color or teachers of different racial or ethnic backgrounds in front of them in classrooms. Mr. Siddons, I'm going to start with you on this because you've done some work around this with teachers and recruiting teachers and training teachers. What are your thoughts on the continuing lack of diversity in America's teacher corps?
It's going to be an uphill climb, I think. It's
a great profession.
It is a great profession, but I think we'd be remiss to say, and I get a little annoyed when people say, well, there's just no candidates out there. And that's just not accurate. It's just school systems need to do more in terms of outreach for teachers of color, and then school systems need to do more in terms of building the capacity of those who are in their community to ultimately enter the profession.
Okay.
I think this is a major issue moving forward. I think it's already a major issue, but in terms of how to address it,
Yeah.
I mean, so you say it's a great profession, but I'm like, really? Like, is it?
It is.
If you're 22,
It's a cornerstone of Ed's Not Dead. It's part of our vision statement that
I agree.
Teaching is a great profession.
I've been a little, the shortened daylight hours always get me down a little bit. So
All
I've been a
right,
little
I
bit
know.
more on the pessimistic
Do
side.
you have that special lamp that you
I do.
use?
I haven't
Okay.
used it in like 5 years.
Okay,
So
all right.
sitting nicely
I
in the
remember
corner.
walking into his house one morning. I was picking him up for something, and he's.
I remember what he
You
told
don't
me.
have to share this story. Why are you sharing this story?
I won't share.
No, yeah, I was sitting in front of the lamp, like
He's
3 inches
he's
from
like
my
this.
face. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, trying not to be depressed. What are you doing?
All right, go ahead.
No, but just in terms of how, so, I do think, as you said, it is incumbent upon micro level schools and school districts and stuff like that to recruit people within the community to come. But, we've talked at length about kind of the national conversation about schools and teaching, and, the job certainly isn't getting any easier.
Right.
And people don't do it to be millionaires or whatever.
Right.
But as Robbie has pointed out before, what's wrong with making a living wage or even a comfortable wage? And although in some districts that's certainly the case, I'm not sure that everywhere. I know that everywhere that's not the case.
Right.
So I just
But it seems to me we're missing something here.
yeah.
If 80%, according to this article, of teachers are Caucasian in this country, there are plenty of white people that are still interested in teaching. Are there structural, institutional barriers, racist barriers that are continuing to keep teachers of color, from different ethnic backgrounds out of the profession?
Why do most people go into teaching?
I asked a question. You're doing the Sean Hannity.
I am.
Answer my freaking
Why did
question.
people go into teaching? What
They had
kind of
they had a great experience.
They had
in
a
school.
great experience in school. Most people they
Okay.
played teacher.
Well, there you go then.
As children, or they loved school, or they played house at home, or teacher. They played school at home, or whatever.
Or their legacies like me,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
But
what that was. I was gonna
My
say
point
before,
is,
yeah.
like, they, by and large, when you're in a school where when you're underfunded school or school system, or you're in a school that's underperforming.
Or what about if you're in a school where you never see anybody teaching that looks
correct.
like
you?
Right.
You don't make any connections with
assume-
teachers. And you're not like, well, this is not for me.
It's a broad brush, but you're not having the same experience, a positive experience in school as students who are white.
Remember, Zaretta Hammond said to us, and I totally pathetically kind of tried to counter it. I mean, she said that, public schools were conceived in a racist manner in this country. So why would anyone want to go back into that profession?
Right. Yeah. And if your own culture is not represented and or reflected in the teaching materials or the people or the activities or whatever, I mean, what's going to push you to want to do that? Not much.
And let's be honest, so much of not just teaching jobs, but jobs in general are about your circle and who you know and the people that you associate with.
Right.
And so if it's already predominantly white,
right.
And I guess I'm making the assumption that the predominantly white teaching corps has
you have
friends,
you have tremendous advantages.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's been shown in all professions.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article, a research piece done at Hopkins about working on the waterfront in Baltimore, and that white working class workers had a much better chance of getting those jobs because of affiliation with unions and everything else. And if you were a person of color, you were locked out totally. Right. All right, moving on. Ready?
Let me say one last thing.
Go ahead.
And so to my point about changing the conversation, so I do think some of the movement in the last 2 years or what have you about the importance of public education, about funding public education,
Unions.
about the importance of teachers, about how great teachers make great schools.
Right.
So I think that's part and parcel of it. And we talked to Randy Weingarten and asked her, kind of, I can't remember the question, but it was essentially like, how do we make schools better? Like, what's next? And hers was essentially that, reframing how we talk about schools and the purpose of schools.
Right.
So I think that, and really changing about everybody thinks about schools, that schools are great for everyone on a national level from national politicians is extremely important.
Right. At the end of the day, what do we need to do? I think we have to start with paying them more.
Yeah.
Set a base salary of $70,000, $80,000.
We're going to get to that. Stop.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, the Common Core had a meteoric rise and a complicated fall. Now it quietly persists. As the decade started, states were adopting a new set of standards for what math and English concepts children should know.
What are the children's doing?
A brainchild of state leaders, juiced by substantial funds from the Gates Foundation. Oh, there's those philanthropies again. And the Fed Race to the Top program, the Common Core, was initially adopted by 45 states.
That's a lot of states.
And it has had, I don't know if I'd say a quiet death. They say that it persists.
I think it's had a lot more influence than maybe this is giving it credit for.
Okay, pray tell.
I mean, it was a major shift in the standards by which teachers were getting their curriculum and teaching. I felt. I mean, I remember the first time I saw the standards, or at least the packet of standards that was initially being rolled out, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a pretty dramatic shift from what maybe I had been trained on as a student teacher."
So why
only 3 years prior?
So when we in our last episode looked at the NAEP data, why didn't a commitment to higher standards and harder standardized testing result in better student outcomes?
Well, I think because some states, I mean, as the article goes on to say in the third paragraph there, talks about how states tweaked it or rebranded it or took some parts of it and didn't use other parts of it. So it came out as a comprehensive set of standards. Then different states took a different approach to it. In the one state that, on the most recent NAEP data that was highlighted for fully and wholeheartedly endorsing and implementing, Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Remember, they had
I knew it was an M.
the really dramatic gains.
They did.
It was just in literacy that they really dramatically,
because they bought into it hook, line, and sinker.
And they have been doing it for 7 years or 8 years, kind of, I think, as it was intended. Now, I'm not saying that would work in every state, but at least in that one particular instance, it certainly has been effective.
Okay, so the question is, will there be another standards-based movement in our careers, in our lifetimes? Because this one has run its course.
No.
Okay.
It put such a bad taste in people's mouths.
Well, and also it's I mean, so much of education is all right. On to the next thing.
How did
it also became politicized?
I was going to
just
say
like everything.
How did it get politicized?
They called it. I heard this one substitute used to call it the Communist Core.
That sounds like straight out of Fox News.
It is.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So it got associated with the Obama administration, right? Even though its genesis was bipartisan,
Right.
Well, and I think a
and
lot
it
of
put
it,
the states in control.
right?
and from a parent perspective,
Oh, parents hated it.
specifically with math, right?
Yeah.
So they grew up learning, let's just say, the times tables in this and that and whatever. And when they saw the homework that their kids were bringing home, it was all of a sudden like they don't even teach kids to add anymore. They don't teach kids the basics and all that. So I think there was
They don't use number blocks and abacuses anymore,
exactly, and therein lied the problem. With
and
a
they
lot of
need
the pushback.
calculators.
So there you go, the abacus argument.
I know. Well, I have my 16-year-old was a Common Core baby.
Yes.
And he
A
really
Common Core baby.
Seriously, he was.
Yeah,
I mean, it from K till now, his math, for example, the way he learned it was really different.
Mm-hmm.
And
How's he doing?
He's doing great. And I thought the way that the conceptual underpinnings of the curriculum that he was exposed to made him have a much deeper understanding of mathematical concepts than take the reciprocal and multiply.
Yeah. But I think just to your other point about bipartisan and then not, like many things that are associated with a particular administration or political party, the other side, rightly or wrongly, knee jerks to, well, that it's bad. Automatically, it's bad.
Yeah.
And when you have people that are willing to go along with, yes, it's bad, whether it's parents, whether it's school leaders, whoever, it just becomes all that much easier to buy into that argument. With that being said, though, I don't think any of us have wildly championed the Common Core as some panacea, for education. But
no, I mean, I feel a little guilty that because I was a principal at that time, and I mean, I like the idea of a standards-based movement, but again, it was incumbent upon states and municipalities who already had curriculum or had to replace their curriculum. I mean, it was a giant ask.
Yeah.
Well, think about how
do that.
the bureaucracy of public education works from the federal level all the way down to an individual teacher level. That's a lot of layers to get through and to sort of keep it intact and to have everybody follow it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. It got
not that realistic,
no,
probably.
It got co-opted. All right, number 3. You ready?
Let's do it.
This is an Ed's Not Dead favorite. The prevailing narrative about teachers and their unions shifted in a major way. In 2009, just 13 states used test scores to evaluate teachers. By 2013, 40 states and Washington, D.C. required it. Those new evaluations were the outgrowth of concerns that too many bad teachers were being allowed to stay on the job thanks to a combination of union protections and limited efforts to judge their performance. Today, though, conversations about America's teachers are more likely to grapple with how to raise long, stagnant teacher pay. Just what you were talking about, Mr. Sids, an idea that's grown increasingly popular as teacher strikes and protests have swept the country. So the narrative on teachers has changed dramatically. I feel like when we started the show, we were still in that cycle of the demonization of teachers. And during the course of our 3 seasons, it has changed a lot.
A lot.
In the reddest of red states.
Yeah. Well, that's where it started.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it started with our friend Scott Walker in Wisconsin.
Yes.
True.
That they jumped the shark with Scott Walker. Okay, there's that reference again that you two still don't know.
Jump the shark.
How can you know who Grizzly Adams is and not understand?
I
jump
always
the
thought the
shark?
expression was "jump the ship." That's what I thought.
Jump the ship. Where did that come from?
No idea.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm stuck on the metaphor now. But I do credit unions pretty much wholeheartedly for seizing the narrative and aggressively promoting the new narrative of long, stagnant teacher pay, of classroom sizes, of how much actually we're spending, which we'll get into later, not only pure pupil, but overall expenditures as well. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to our interview with our dear friend Randy, she said that in many ways, the Janus decision opened up unions to just say, you know what? You don't have to join if you don't want. Fine. So this is what we're about, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to say.
Well, the Janus decision sure didn't deliver what conservatives thought it would deliver.
Right.
No,
They thought it was
anything,
gonna,
it's strengthened.
They thought it was going to be the death knell
at the end of it,
public
and we
sector
talked about it,
unions.
and I think we
we were
worried about it too.
We were all
And it
wearing
was-
black that day on that show.
Yeah, it was
right?
like, man, this is going to be pretty
Yeah.
bad. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to jump
Yeah.
ship, and unions are done for.
But ultimately, union membership has increased
Yeah.
across the country.
Credit to Randy Weingarten and people like her who fought. I mean, she fought Arnie Duncan and others because there were the Obama administration was not without responsibility for furthering that narrative.
Right.
I mean,
And it's an indicative of some of their efforts to be bipartisan,
Yeah.
where they're like, let's do all these great initiatives, but we have to cater to the right. And so we want to make sure that we're doing X, Y, and Z to make sure that we're catering to their
Right.
desires.
I mean,
and look what it got them.
and they also
Nothing.
they also hooked resources, money to
Major. A
to
lot.
to
Jeez.
coercive accountability.
With teacher evaluations, for some school systems having to do for every teacher,
Yeah, every
having
year.
an evaluation every single year.
Yeah.
That is
34 states still require student test scores and evaluations.
Yep.
Now, with all that being said, I do think the importance of a good teacher can't be understated.
Of course.
And going back to topic number one, or bullet point number one, about continuing to grow the base of people that want to be teachers and
Right.
to make it an attractive profession is hugely important to
Sure.
getting more and more and better
Right.
individuals in the classroom, which ultimately leads to students.
Well,
success.
it might have woken folks up a little bit.
And do you remember in like 2012?
Yeah.
You and I sat in the conference room and we talked about a way to create our own teacher value added system.
Oh yeah, we did.
We did.
We did.
We were
created
sucked
a
in
dot
too.
diagram.
We did.
Well, we just
We
thought-
actually had a smart 8th grader that tried to work on it for us.
did we?
Yeah, we
I
did.
don't remember that.
Yeah, he was going to create this algorithm that was going to plug in different data points to give you a score on a teacher's effectiveness.
And mostly I was just and clearly it's been implemented in a much wider, well thought out manner than I think we had thought about. But the idea of you can boil down 15 different factors into a number, I think is appealing. It's still appealing.
It is.
to me.
I know, I agree, and I
don't think it's
That's
fair.
what
I don't
they
think
did
it-
with Charlotte
good.
Danielson's
well,
model.
I don't think it's just appealing. I think there's some amount of merit to it. I mean, the biggest change in my 25 years has been the connection between pedagogy and outcomes. It didn't really used to exist. I mean, teachers didn't have to necessarily be responsible for how their kids did.
It was just, are you doing the right thing?
Yeah, and are your kids happy?
Yeah.
Are you teaching the curriculum? There were our parents happy. Guys like John Saphir and Carol Ann Tomlinson changed that. They said, okay, the end result should be student learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was a natural movement. And then in all other professions, data has gotten to be a huge thing. I mean, sabermetrics in sports and baseball, and that's what you and I were thinking along the lines of.
we were going to moneyball education.
We wanted to create
Yes.
the teacher metric war,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wins above replacement, and that's what value added is about. I think just like anything else in the field, somehow it got compromised and co-opted because it's not. In application, it's incredibly complex.
And I think it demoralizes
It does,
teachers.
and it shouldn't
When
be.
you, when
it
you
shouldn't
boil
be
down
used.
the most complex profession on the
Right.
face of the earth to
Wow,
a
that's
number,
that's a stretch.
I don't know.
There we go.
The most complex. is
There we go.
Quite a statement.
Listen, you're teaching 30 students at one point to gather information, to facilitate and to process information,
It doesn't
doing
have
a
to.
million things at once.
Didn't you get in trouble for this like 2 seasons ago with your mom with nursing? When you when you claimed that it was
Oh, yeah.
that it was
Yeah.
that it was she listened and she took great exception.
It is one of the most complex jobs. In
It
the
is.
face of the earth.
I agree.
It's the work that goes in when you actually. I'm learning how to be a skillful teacher.
You
From
already
research
are.
for better teaching.
Yeah.
The skillful teacher.
Yeah.
And you dive into that work and the research that's into it, and it's like the amount of decisions and the things that effective teachers do in their day-to-day work and their hour by hour, minute by minute is absolutely astounding.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. All right, number 4. This is a quick one. Ready?
Yes.
The backlash built over testing then was translated into federal education law. Continued concerns about the way testing was affecting classroom instruction and the increase of tests being used to evaluate teachers spurred many students to opt out of state exams by the middle of the decade. When Congress rewrote the federal education law, it continued to require annual testing in grades 3 through 8, but it eased up on that coercive accountability that I always reference, leaving those decisions largely to states. ESSA passed in 2015 with overwhelming bipartisan support. Where are we with testing?
We are still testing out the wazoo.
I know we are.
Yeah, they took away the punitive sanctions of No Child Left Behind, but we've done nothing but add more tests, required testing to students, and it's just at a ridiculous point. I was talking to somebody recently. I was like, I just don't think from a student perspective, how often they're tested. I'm not even talking about end of year park tests, like just all the time,
individual classes,
all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
When last time I was in a school, I counted. Well, when I was at a middle school, I counted how many tests an average 8th grader would take, including county, state, and teacher-led tests, and it was 35.
And then in high school, you get into,
High stakes testing.
Yeah, and the College Board. I mean, you have AP, you have PSAT, you have SAT, you have ACT. I mean, it's just it's
again, that is demoralizing for kids. Like, what? It's not an enjoyable place to be in.
And I don't want to come across as anti-testing and say, well, no, they shouldn't ever take any tests. I do think tests have a place,
of course.
But I do think that we've really jumped the shark.
That's it.
On testing.
Wow.
Did I use it right?
Jump the ship. Jump the ship.
We've jumped the ship.
Jump the ship.
Yeah. So I would like to see, that is one thing that I would really like to see changed.
Why do we need to test every year, like a standardized test? Is that necessary? When I was in school, it was like, back in my day, it was like, I think it was 3rd, 8th, and 11th grade. Yep. You got to state testing.
I guess the thing that I would worry most about is the drain on instructional time that it's had. I think, time is, everybody knows that, I'm a geezer, that time on task, kids learning, actively learning is the most critical thing in education. And a tremendous amount of time is spent on testing.
And human resources.
Yeah. I mean,
there's like literally testing coordinators in every school.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you change school schedules and everything about school to accommodate testing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that is a new reality, and that has not gone away. That's probably the new normal.
I think so.
And will be. All right, number 5. Your favorite, Mr. Siddons. Charter schools continued to grow, especially in America's cities. About 7% of America's public school students attend a charter school, but in a handful of places like Washington, D.C., Detroit, and New Orleans, charter schools now educate a much larger share of students. By 2017, charters made it up at least 10% of public school enrollment in more than 200 cities and communities. Recently, charters, though, have seen their growth slow as they've faced setbacks politically. A number of leading Democratic candidates, Elizabeth Warren, for president in 2020 have been critical of charters and promised to impose new limitations on them.
What do we think? I'm taking your cut on it. It's that there's enough food at the table, but I think they need to be severely reined in and I don't know, regulated.
Yes,
and I think the private sector's role in it needs to end.
And so, I definitely of two minds of this, as I've mentioned ad nauseum. My kids are in a charter school in DC, and we're very happy with it. But I think I mentioned in the last episode, starting to have some more quandaries over not being in the neighborhood school, and not only for my own individual kids, but just for neighborhoods in general, and what siphoning off kids to all different schools in all different parts of the city does to any particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
I like the idea of neighborhood schools being the driver, the sort of locus point for any particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes that away. But to your point, I do think that there is a place for charter schools. I do think letting each individual state decide how they're implemented with federal dollars is a major issue.
Right.
Because they can, as some states have done, we talked about Indiana in particular, funneling money basically to private schools, funneling money to religious schools, funneling money to schools that don't comply with federal standards, such as educating students with disabilities. Like, all of that is a major, major issue.
Yeah.
So I'm down with charters as long as there are some pretty stringent regulations on how they can operate,
Right.
not necessarily on their day-to-day operations, because that is in some ways why they've come about in the first place. And part of their success, I do believe, is they are able to be experiments, hopefully
More nimble.
hopefully successful experiments, to kind of meet varying and different needs for varying and different kids. The
Right.
sort of one size fits all doesn't necessarily work for every jurisdiction.
Right.
But I do think we need to see some change. But demonization of charters, I'm not down with that.
Yeah.
So can we say, though, that the end of the decade has finally brought to us, as this statement you guys missed in the article, overall, they perform similarly to nearby district schools. I think we can quit living in the fantasy world, though, that they're some kind of panacea, that they outstrip public education as far as performance.
Magically making charter schools and saying, look, now we have charter schools. No, that's not.
Yeah.
It's not a magic wand.
And I think folks have come to that realization that there's a place for them, but they in no way have, in my mind, been the death knell for public education.
No, they've not supplanted public schools.
Nor will they.
Nor will they. Nor should they.
Yeah. All right, folks, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to do 6 through 10.
That's right.
All right, there's some good ones in there. Thanks for joining us again on Ed's Not Dead. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I am still here with Peter Crable.
Yes, sir.
And C.H. Siddons.
I didn't go anywhere.
All right, so we are ready to do the next 5 top issues of the 20 teens. We had some good ones so far.
What was your favorite one?
I thought we started with a bang. Well, this is not my favorite. I think the most concerning and of the first 5 was the lack of diversity in the
I agree.
in the teacher corps. I
Yep.
mean, some of these other
Jesus.
That scared the daylights
It was a
out
head
of me.
that just fell off the wall.
Holy did it hit you?
no, it did not.
Did it scare
It
you?
was a rhinoceros head.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, it's the papier-mâché rhinoceros
Holy
head.
moly.
All right,
What can we hold on. What is that?
we're not still recording, right?
We are, and we're going to keep it in.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are 100%. What is that, and why do you have it?
It's been in the studio for 3 seasons.
What is it?
It's a paper mache rhinoceros.
Made by?
That's a good question. I don't know where I got it from, but it's cool. But it just nearly hit me in the head.
That just got taken out by a
I'm going to take a picture of this for the Twitter feed.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, please do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was surprising.
It was really loud.
And there you go. Okay.
You got it.
Post that.
All right.
All right, moving on.
Professional radio.
This is how you do it
Listen,
in pro radio.
This is
right
how it
here.
works.
All right. So as I said before the rhino fell, because this is a continuing problem. I mean, things like the Common Core and testing and all of those things are just the pendulum swing of American public education.
Yeah.
But this is an area that has not gotten any better and needs to, I believe, if schools are gonna make
And
progress.
I don't think it's really on the forefront of kind of new
No.
education policy reforms.
no.
either. Yeah.
I mean, maybe locally.
Yeah, locally.
Yeah, for some systems, I'm sure.
yeah.
I'm sure some systems could care less.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
Okay, so number 6, Mr. Siddons, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you done tweeting?
Yep.
School spending fell and then recovered with major consequences for students. School spending was on an upward trajectory for years. And then what happened, fellas?
Great Recession.
2008. The Obama administration stimulus package. I think that was a part of TARP, right?
That's right.
TARP 1 and TARP 2. What were those things called?
Troubled Asset Relief Package.
Yes, and then the educational version was SIG, School Improvement Grants.
Oh, man, I never heard that.
Research found those spending cuts really hurt students, leading to lower test scores and graduation rates. That dovetails with a number of studies released this decade that found a clear link between more school spending and better outcomes for students. In real dollar, spending returned to previous highs by 2015-16, though the share of the country's GDP devoted to K-12 public schools has not recovered pre-2008. What do you guys make of spending?
At some point, I would like to move past the argument about whether spending more money on schools is useful. Because
you mean like the Coleman report from 1968, where that he established that a long time ago?
We haven't moved well past this. It's like, no, we haven't, but it's just ridiculous that we're still having the same argument in pinching pennies when it comes to schools, where every one of your children go every single day.
Yep.
Regardless if you have children or not, we all benefit from robust and strong public schools.
Right.
And research, and in this article they link in a Northwestern study as well as a number of other studies, spending more money gets you better outcomes.
Right.
Now, throwing money at an issue has never worked, as any spoiled child could tell you, but spending money...
Oh, I like that, Mr. Krabs. That was good.
Thank you. Spending money on schools brings us better outcomes, period, flat, end of risk. We perseverate over $300 per pupil spending, but then we go to Afghanistan and spend literally trillions of dollars. So to me,
and no one ever asks about how we pay for tax cuts.
To me, it's really all about what we talked about. Well, what is the point of public schools? Robust public society. So let's spend money on it. Let's hire tons of teachers. Let's put the money where it is. Put your money where your mouth is. If we care about it, let's spend the money.
Yep. We
have the money. Let's do it.
I would also add that in lots of places in the country, it's not only spending like above maintenance of effort. It's some school systems that won't even maintain a current level of effort where your schools are on shoestring budgets and they can barely operate.
Right.
I mean, it's not even like some school systems even consider going above and beyond. In some places in the country, you have to put it on the ballot to get an activity bus for an after-school program. Yeah, I mean but again, that gets to an archaic funding formula that a lot of the country continues to operate under.
Right. And although
there are major structural problems with school funding.
Absolutely. And as this article talks about, although on the face of it, the per pupil spending looks like it's recovered from pre-recession eras. So nationwide, it's $12,330. As a percentage of the actual whole country's GDP, it has not recovered. It's only 4.1%. So that's about half a percentage point down from what it had been in the previous 10, 20 years. Mm-hmm. So as we have gotten richer and the economy has been booming, we have not allocated any of that money proportionally to schools.
I know.
So the pie has not been equally shared.
It's pretty ridiculous that we have had, I think it's officially the longest sustained growth in the history of the country.
We're still pinching pennies for schools.
Yep. All right, number 7. Technology is even more present in classrooms, but there still isn't much evidence that it improves learning. As the decade comes to a close, virtually every public school in the country has high-speed internet, a major increase from 2013. District leaders and teachers report that their schools are filled with digital learning, and that's in quotes, but what that means is ambiguous. Teachers have mixed feelings. Mr. Siddons, you're a teacher. Do you have mixed feelings about this?
I do. I think kids are spending too much time on screens just to start. I think people are spending too much time.
Will you hit the audience with my other line about the use of tech in classrooms? Remember what I call it?
There's enough food at the table?
No. High involvement, low learning?
High involvement, low learning. How do you get kids to be compliant and not be a pain in your butt? Is you put them on a screen.
So it's not packets and worksheets. Now,
it's just packets on a Google Doc.
Correct.
Right. And as much as there's a Twitter personality, she's a teacher, I can't remember her name. Alice Dealey. And she's a provocateur.
Oh, she's the bomb thrower.
Yeah, she
Oh,
throws them.
she makes people mad.
And you know what?
She's anti-tech, right?
No, there's it's nuanced.
Okay.
She's just a provocateur in some ways, but she's always right, obviously. But one thing that she says, and I have muted her many times, is that just because you put the packet on a Word doc or a Google doc doesn't make it not a packet. But it resonates with me because like even kids when I was teaching in middle school, like you'd give them the option of being off their computer and they loved it. They did.
Yeah.
If you gave it to them and it was still a meaningful lesson and meaningful learning, they didn't want to be part of the Chromebook play-by-play because they were just sick of it because it was all the time.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And this goes to show you that throwing money at a problem that is based on technology or
Not actually
iPads or
based on
whatever,
research.
right? But what is other than the students? What's the most important resource in that classroom?
Teacher.
It's the teacher. So we need to invest in teachers and teacher training and teacher professional development to help them teach more effectively.
Computers can.
Teachers can help
with that.
Computers can help with that.
I was going to say, Krabs, you did a little research back in the day on, I think you did on personalized learning. The use of tech was supposed to be the gateway to personalized learning.
Well,
to me, that is
and this is emblematic of a larger societal issue where we have, as a society, bought in wholly to Silicon Valley and technology and what they're selling as an answer to basically all of our problems, whether it's Facebook and what they're selling. And then, I mean, the push of personalized learning and computers in the classroom was heavily funded by the Chan Zuckerberg initiative.
Yes. Yep.
And they have so much money that they could make everybody have a computer. And it's like, well, that's great. But thinking back to something you said, I believe last episode or maybe the Khan Academy episode where you talked about, well, in how many AP classes do you go into and all the kids are sitting there with personalized learning on a Chromebook or on a MacBook or whatever?
none.
Right.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's become the sort of high poverty, make you feel good, look good, whatever. But in this, they don't cite any studies, and I've never seen any that says, hey man, putting computers in classrooms dramatically increases test scores. No. And that's kind of a larger point.
I think we'd know that by now.
Yeah, and a larger theme throughout all of these is that how many of these are actually based on research?
Yeah.
We have all this ed policy out there, but like how much of it, and my guess is not a lot,
Right.
Is actually funded with really well thought out research. This works, let's fund this. We know this works. Number of studies have said this works, let's do it. And a lot of it is just, it's the money or it's the new shiny idea or something like that.
Well, I'll leave you with a personal note on number 7 on tech. I periodically now during writer's workshop time get emails from my daughter from her Chromebook during the school day.
I no doubt.
Titled "Hey Daddy," and
You get emails
from her, and I have to tell her, "Stop emailing me. You're in school. Go back to work." And so she's clearly, I mean, it's cute, but
you should CC her teacher on it.
I should. Oh, that
You should BCC her teacher.
There you go.
that would be funny. I never even thought of that. Anyway, so
I've CC'd you. Greetings, Nora.
Yeah.
I've CC'd your principal on this, or your teacher on this email, just to keep them in the loop.
Well,
I'm wondering what kind of questions you have.
She's a clever one, and she figured out that she could find me on email, and now she's got that Chromebook in front of her.
I
and
can
she's,
communicate with my dad during
yeah,
the day.
yeah.
Sweet.
And
That's a loophole in the system, though.
not only does she send me emails, she takes pictures of herself with the Chromebook, making ridiculous faces.
Does she send you gifts?
She does not send me. No, I did send.
That's next.
I did send her a gift. No, and to try to impress she and her friend. Anyway, all right, number 8. A school discipline overhaul reduced suspensions across the board. At the start of the decade, high-profile reports drew attention to the fact that black students were much more likely than other students to be suspended from school, and that being suspended is correlated with dropping out of school. The teens were certainly the time of heightened awareness of the school-to-prison pipeline. Federal data has shown declining suspension rates, and the drop has been dramatic in several cities, including New York and Los Angeles. These efforts were sometimes controversial. Some districts failed to report true suspension rates, and some teachers said reducing suspensions made classrooms more difficult to manage. Although, so jump in, suspension rates. What do you think?
It's a challenging one.
It is
definitely a challenging one. I think
no easy answer.
No, but I mean, the word on the street would be first, we're just not reporting it. So, or we're going to call it, in-school suspension, or we're going to call it something else. I think more and more school districts are coming to the conclusion that they need to have a very detailed and holistic school student discipline policy, where it's like, what do we do for individual scenarios and what merits actual suspension and removal from the education environment.
And I think going back to the whole reason why it came about in the first place was that students of color were being vastly disproportionately
and there's no argument about
disciplined and suspended. So coming from that point, like, we have this issue, and I couldn't begin to tell you the percentage of students who were suspended unfairly or were suspended for something that their white counterparts would not be suspended for.
Right.
I would venture to say a pretty large number.
Yeah.
So coming from that point, it's like, yes, we do need to do something. And in general, if you can, and this is kind of my mantra with discipline, is the whole point of discipline is to change behavior.
Right.
Is that what you're really looking to do? And so if it's changing behavior and like you suspend a kid one time and then there's never anything, well, maybe that's a calculus that you want to make, and maybe it is worth it in that one particular instance. But I do think it had gotten to the point, as the statistics had shown, by the disproportionality, that students were just being suspended left and right, willy-nilly, and just taking kids out of school. Well, you're not contributing, you're not being constructive, and it's not actually useful. Now, whether it's just like nobody suspend anybody, or what the solution is, I'm less sure and less conviction about that.
And I would say for many, many years, let's be honest, schools were largely unaccountable for their behavior in suspending kids. I mean, there was unless it was internal, there were no controls to monitor disproportionality or how kids were being unfairly treated. I just wonder at times if suspensions are not just the tip of the iceberg educationally, though. I mean, what does it say about how we're serving kids of color in schools that are those schools really serving the needs of kids educationally other than suspending them? What does it say about how engaged kids are in school?
Right.
I mean, I think it has educational implications. It's not just disciplinary. Am I making sense?
I would say educational, yes, too, but the other factor would be, I guess, more holistically in terms of how schools and or our communities are serving the students. I'd venture to say that students that are suspended have other things going on in their lives which make them unavailable for learning, and a mere interesting educational curriculum would solve some of that, but by no means all.
No, but if boys we know are suspended more than girls, and then boys of color are suspended more than their white peers, then what does it say about how we're serving those kids educationally in the classroom?
Yeah, not well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, and what's it say about institutionalized racism and the role of teachers? I mean, Mr. Krabs, as an administrator, you've had the referrals or the kids that are sent out of class for reasons that you probably have found completely ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway. All right. So that, I would say over the decade, that's a win for American public education.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think reduction of
win.
suspension, having more kids in classrooms, is a win.
Because more and more people are saying that suspensions don't work, and the improvement of or the inclusion of like restorative justice.
I was going to say, we didn't even talk about restorative practices. I mean, there's other ways to approach teaching kids right from wrong.
And restorative practices have gone through the roof across the nation, but I don't know. It's exciting to know that they're thinking of more, actual ways that can solve kids' problems.
Right.
Yep.
Than just sending them home.
Right.
All right. Number 9, and we are going to C.H. Siddons first on this one. Mr. Crable,
what's to say about this one?
Smiling
really?
at me.
Skip it.
The education secretary became the subject of national ridicule, even as her signature
Jeez.
issue, school choice, gained traction locally.
I mean, other than rolling back things, she's been off the radar.
Do I need to read any of this?
I don't think so.
Well, the nation's Secretary of Education isn't typically a household name. That changed with Betsy DeVos, whose widely viewed confirmation hearing in 2017, I will say, right when Ed's Not Dead got started,
that's right.
helped make her one of President Trump's least popular cabinet members, although I will add she became very popular on our podcast.
She did.
So we thank her.
I think
right?
we've deleted tweets because of her.
She has not made progress on her signature issues of school choice, particularly through tuition vouchers meant to help low-income families pay for private school. She's rolled back a bunch of policies that I would say are semi-impactful, but overall her impact has been negligent. What do you think, Mr. Siddons?
I'd agree. I think she's been able to stay in her position because she keeps a low profile, certainly doesn't visit public schools, and doesn't do much.
And I'd say...
and that's what she wants.
Yeah, going back to my a point I made earlier about one of the other issues was about shaping the dialogue. And regardless of some of the policies that she has rolled back, which have been plenty bad, she does have a large mouthpiece, and that has been vouchers. It has been school choice, and those have been pretty at the forefront, if not shortly there behind, issues that have been talked about widely in public education. So whether she's actually getting more kids into school choice programs or not, I think she has been successful in at least elevating that part of the conversation around education.
And if anything, she's harmed different groups of people, whether it's teachers or students in schools. But I'm one of the things that more recent news stories was that she's not offering students college debt relief, and how they got screwed in private schools.
When you can protect the corporations, why protect the individual?
That's right.
So
It's a win for her.
Overall,
yachts.
Aside from providing us with rich fodder for our podcast, I would say that the fear of what she might wreak on public education has not come to pass.
Could be, and could have been. It could still be a lot worse.
I agree.
A lot more detrimental.
I agree.
Yep.
And I think, Mr. Siddons, as we get to the 2020 election, maybe we should have a best of Dear Betsy.
Just compile quotes. And, stories.
Quotes. Because
Okay.
the one that comes to
Should I
mind.
make a word cloud?
What's
or?
the first Betsy DeVos quote that comes to your mind?
Oh, jeez.
Grizzly bears.
That would be one. There is no system.
There is no system.
That's my favorite.
Good Lord.
All right, number 10, last but not least. Ready? More students are earning a high school diploma, but student performance on national and international tests has stagnated.
Jeez.
Mr. Krabs, what do you think?
So, I had a coming to whatever moment of Jeebus after we did the episode, because then I started reading more articles and
the NAPE episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on Twitter, and I was like, why are they giving this stupid test so much publicity? And I was
Right.
like, oh, we literally just recorded an episode where we talked about that for 25 minutes. So I don't know. I guess it's, in my mind, it's a little overblown. I mean, going back to the testing issue, there are so many tests. This is one of a billion tests, and I'm not convinced that this is the test to end all tests that tells you everything about the future of American society. It's a test. It's a data point. But to go around hand-wringing about it and being like so worried, I'm just, who cares? Let's talk about the issues that we need to fix. Let's put in place some solutions, and I think the test results will come along after that. But focusing on the test is somewhat counterproductive.
What do you make of perhaps the most positive trend in American public education since 2010 has been the rising high school graduation rate and declining dropout rates? It's interesting. Graduation rates have gone up for African American and Hispanic students, and suspensions have dropped. We just did that.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
By 2017, 84.6%, an all-time high, were receiving their diplomas.
I think it's great. I mean, like it's not enough.
Is it legit?
I think
I can already hear certain voices saying, "Well, it doesn't mean what it used to mean. It means less."
And I don't mean to say it that way. I'm
That's
just saying
bull.
like
I'm just saying that's
Of course they'll say that, and it's lined with racism, and I just the basic thing to have in our society is a high school diploma.
I was going to say it's a pretty low bar.
It's a low bar, but I don't want to diminish the amount of work that kids put into to actually graduate from high school and
teachers
in the education and the school climates that we have today with testing and school shootings and everything else that kids have to deal with in our day. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to diminish that, but I also want to we have to make sure that we impress upon teachers that we have to help kids graduate no matter what, because if they leave without a high school diploma, they are without amour. They're without direction.
It doesn't set them back 6 months.
It sets them back a lifetime. And they're more likely to go to prison, and they're more likely to be just in disparate poverty over the period of their lifetime.
Doesn't teach them a lesson?
Yeah, right. Jeez. But at the end of the day, it's a good news story in an otherwise kind of challenging year of news.
All right, that's the 20 teens for you folks. Thank you. You had the last word, Mr. Sids.
That was the most talking I've done in a month and a half.
I know. 10 stories that defined K-12 education in the 2010s. You can find it in Chalkbeat. And I do want to give a shout out to a friend of the pod, Josh Starr, who tweeted this article out on LinkedIn. And that's what led me to it. And thanks especially to Matt Barnum and Gabrielle Lamar LeMay for putting this piece together.
Time out.
What
are your number one predictions for the next decade of education news?
Can we do that in the next segment? We're up against a break.
Oh,
here.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll come back. We'll do a quiz. We'll do predictions.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thanks. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. As always, we are brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. I'm still here with my boys, Mr. Crable and Mr. Siddons.
What's up?
Hello.
We are now on to the second wild card game, and we want to wrap up the show so we can watch the second half. Just kidding.
I know you want to introduce us here.
A lot of Oz there.
I know there's a lot of Oz.
Okay. And you just said...
I mistakenly said, should we make predictions for the whole decade?
I
think we should just do it for 2020.
I don't really want to do them at all.
Well, let me give you Larry Ferlazzo's.
Yeah,
let's hear about Larry Ferlazzo's.
Or is it Ferlazzo?
I've had some pronunciation issues tonight.
Particularly.
I used the word negligent when I meant to say negligible.
Negligible.
I just want to get that
Larry
out there.
Ferlazzo, big guy on Twitter, he puts out predictions for every year. He puts out predictions for education in the coming year. So I'll just give them to you quick. The U.S. Supreme Court will rule that the Trump administration can legally end the DACA program, which began under Obama and grants permission for nearly 800,000 undocumented immigrants. That's number one. Number two, University of California system will eliminate requiring SAT or ACT scores for admission. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
Yeah?
I think that's a movement that it has been and will continue to gain steam.
Where more schools don't even bother using it.
Yep.
Number three, the number of English language learners in U.S. public schools will drop for the first time because of the Trump administration's immigration policies.
Disagree.
His words were xenophobic immigration policies.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
He said, fortunately, it would just be a temporary blip until a new administration recognizes the importance of immigration to the future of our country. Next one. Education researchers will take note of the United Kingdom's Education Endowment Foundation's new effort to actually ask teachers what they think they should research and begin exploring the possibility of instituting a similar effort here. Didn't Randy Weingarten talk about that?
I don't see that happening.
And, we have a National Institute of Health, have a National Institute of Education.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool. I just don't see that happening.
Mr. Dodd? He's not interested. Next one.
You did that on purpose.
What?
That would be doctor to you.
Oh.
Let's get that straight.
Dr. Dobbs?
It's Dr. Mr. Dodd.
Dr. Mr. Dobbs. The guy who called me Mr. City-Ons on the announcements. Yeah, that's really great. The technology-driven personalized learning bubble will pop.
It has burst already.
And there will be a growing realization that tech is just a very small part of what is needed for personalized instruction.
Indeed.
What do you think?
I think those are good. I might add that this is not groundbreaking, but I think the STEM bubble has burst.
Oh, absolutely. And the STEAM.
Yeah, STEAM. That was.
He says instead of throwing money at gizmos and software, as we just talked about, more and more school leaders will conclude that class size reduction, teacher training, and effective instructional strategies, and support for social emotional learning should
Going
lead
back
the way.
to the teacher.
Correct.
No.
Yeah, I would add that I think there will be a movement towards stronger school culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That I think with a new awareness on not just social emotional learning, but the challenges facing today's youth with mental health, and maybe school leaders, including principals and teachers, will start to understand that building a strong school culture is integral to improving outcomes.
Absolutely.
I don't think you can have one without the other.
Nope.
So I'm hoping that the technocratic movement that we've been in education will give way to some of those soft skills.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Well said. Next
All right.
one.
What do you got?
There's a couple more.
Okay, go ahead.
Use
Sorry.
of the New York Times 1619 project will increase in schools around the country, and its popularity will trigger a wave of local projects examining the role of slavery in multiple communities.
That'd be cool.
It's quite a project. If you haven't checked it out, it's one of the most amazing things I've read.
Yeah, I need to read up on that. I don't know anything about it.
I'll bring you my copy.
Okay.
It's
All right.
outstanding. Next one, a major study demonstrating the effectiveness of restorative practices over punitive school discipline policies will be unveiled. Just talked about that as well.
That'd be nice.
And before the end of the year, we'll know that Betsy DeVos will be out as U.S. Education Secretary and that a teacher will be replacing her.
That's only if Trump loses.
That's a little optimistic. And finally, with the departure of the Gates Foundation CEO, Sue Desmond-Hellmann, and after years of criticism and lack of success in its educational funding initiatives, the organization will announce that it's stepping back from grant making in that sector.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening.
Well, you know what, though? If they want to sponsor the show, we'd be happy to have them.
By the way,
They
Mark
need to redo their money.
Mark
to
Zuckerberg.
podcast.
by the way, Mr. Gates, if you're listening, we will take your check.
We will, absolutely.
Just so everybody's clear, if it comes
Yeah.
to selling out,
yeah.
We will sell out.
Just
you say that on the air.
Netflix, are you listening?
Yeah. You
Just
say that
pay
on the air? No, I don't know.
Casey's monthly Libsyn bill, and we'll be happy. Right?
That's true. I'll take it.
We'll take $50 a year.
Yeah, really.
All right, sold. We're done.
We love Pulp Education. They've been great sponsors, but Gates might
They charge us a lot of money.
they might become the priority. The only other thing that I would add is, because now you've got me thinking, is we've spent a lot of time in our 3 seasons on the show talking about the resegregation of American public schools.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be curious to see what happens with boundary studies and desegregation practices. I have a feeling that there may be, despite the current administration, increased political will in certain parts of the country to tackle that.
Yeah.
So
I think
stay tuned.
because the research and the impact on it, on not doing it,
Yeah.
is very, very clear.
Yeah, it's
A
got,
second civil rights movement, if you will.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I mean, I think that's coming, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that is tied to politics, and I think it's interesting that has gained steam in what, whatever side of the aisle you're on. The current administration would not be one that would be that would hold that near and dear to them.
Correct. Yeah.
No, they don't
So-
want that to happen.
Right. But it is happening. I mean, you read about it every day. It's happening locally.
It is.
The Howard County Public School System in Maryland has taken on quite an aggressive, ambitious redistricting plan.
Something like 1 in 10 students will have a different school.
Yeah, and so and that's really being led by a superintendent and by a board that is supporting it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
stay tuned on that one. Cool. All right, what do you got for us?
So before moving on to the quiz here, we were remiss in not highlighting one piece of feedback that we've gotten. We had a very nice article written
Show
about
feedback,
us. Show
yes.
feedback going back in a student newspaper called The Black and White. A really intelligent, thoughtful, well-spoken, and well-written student named Mira had contacted us about our podcast and the origin story of the podcast and kind of what we're aiming to do. And I think she did a great job at at encapsulating kind of our mission and a fun, not boring podcast.
She's a great writer.
She's a really good writer. Yeah. And when, we talked a little bit about this off the air, but each of us individually, when she interviewed us and talked to us, we're really struck, how mature and thoughtful the questions were, and then how she was kind of able to take our, at least in my case, somewhat gobbledygook answers and make sense of them into something very cohesive, coherent, and well written.
Yeah,
super professional.
Yeah.
I did ask her if she's recording.
Oh, you did?
I did.
And was she?
She was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah. Just want to be above board.
You obviously didn't say anything. She got a quote from friend of the pod, Kelly Phillips.
She did.
Mama Cass. What did Kelly have to say about us?
Describe the group with a quote from anthropologist Margaret Mead.
I do. I said, what did I say? Paleontologist?
Paleontologist.
Dinosaur bones and Ed's not dead. Quote, never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
There you go.
Nothing. Kelly's given to a little hyperbole. We'll take it, though.
The quote encapsulates the passion they feel about the work they do.
Yes, very nice.
So.
Thank you to Mira for
absolutely
for such a nice article.
Yeah, it was very well done.
We appreciate it.
Very well done. Very professional.
All right, take us out. What do you got for us, Mr. Siddons? We got a quiz. Are we going to do another New Year special looking at the decade? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Year by year.
All right, let's go.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Ready.
All right.
It's got to go faster than the 10.
Jeez.
I think this is going to clock it in our longest episode.
Let's go.
All right. So, 2010. We'll start with 2010. And I'll give you hints, and then you can answer.
Yes.
This Apple product model was the first year that it came out.
iPhone.
iPad. Very good, Mr. Crable.
Okay.
2011. Everyone was...
one of us.
Everyone was...
Yeah.
And there's a term for it. Laying down awkwardly everywhere.
Oh, planking.
Boom.
Oh, man.
I'm so hip on culture.
All right, 2012.
That was 2011. Ugh.
2012.
I was very busy in this decade.
Yeah.
You guys were...
I was busy leading school. I didn't have time for this drivel.
I was doing
millennial nonsense.
planning magnet events.
I was...
2012. Blank Sanity took over the world.
Linsanity.
Tie.
What team? Houston Rockets.
Oh, there you go.
No, New York Knicks.
New York
Yeah.
Knicks.
Darn,
All right, well,
sorry.
here's a
He played for the
tiebreaker. Here's a
Rockets later.
tiebreaker for that one in 2012. Blank Style became the most watched video ever.
Gingham.
Gangnam Style, yeah.
That would. Well, you said Gingham. He said Gangnam. So
Does he get it?
Gingham.
No,
the
the preppy version.
Is it-
going Gingham Style? Yes.
Is
yes.
Is it a tablecloth? I don't know.
Okay, that's embarrassing.
All right, 2013. The death of this civil rights leader in South Africa.
Nelson Mandela.
That's
Okay, I'm trying to say the word. What? I said the first name.
Listen, the more you make fun of me
did say
saying things on the
Nelson.
microphone, the more that Peter Craver gets
Okay,
more points.
all right, fine.
So 2014, everyone was doing this challenge.
Ice bucket.
Oh, that's a tie.
Okay.
All right, tiebreaker for 2014. Let's see. This epidemic became a global health crisis.
Ebola.
Darn, you guys
We
tied
said it
again.
the same time again.
One more. 2014,
Stressful.
March of 2014.
Why are you doing tiebreakers?
An airplane disappeared when a blank airline's passenger jet disappeared without a trace.
Australia.
That was in the Malaysia area.
Oh, man.
All right.
Somewhere near Australia.
Yeah. Australian search and rescue teams.
That's right.
And I think it went down towards the South Pole.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. There was a great article I read on it. It's fascinating. It's a
total
mystery.
mind bender.
Yeah,
man.
it is a mind bender. I think the pilot was basically making a beeline for the South Pole when it disappeared.
Okay.
Jeez.
It was
depressing.
I'm trying to think of that article that I read. Anyway, go ahead.
2015. This became legal in the United States.
Marijuana. What?
Gay marriage.
Gay marriage.
Okay.
Marijuana is still not legal in the United States.
I thought maybe you were talking
That
about
was so funny.
Colorado.
So funny. All right.
What year was Colorado? It was around that time.
Probably.
Yeah.
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 Okay. I was
2016.
My gosh.
This, I won't use that one. Harambe was this animal.
Ape, chimpanzee, gorilla.
Lion.
It's a gorilla. Became an internet phenomenon. He died in which zoo?
Cincinnati.
Very good.
Oh,
Very
look
good.
at that.
Don't you have family out there?
I do. I do, yes.
Did you go visit?
My in-laws.
Your in-laws.
No, I try not to. All right, go ahead.
All right. 2017. Millions attended this march.
The
Women's March.
Women's march.
What? No, excuse me.
Crable got it.
I said woo. Before
My
we
wife-
All right, you
go.
want to have a tiebreaker?
Okay.
We experienced
Hold on,
in
hold on.
August 2017.
Hold on,
we
hold on.
experienced a
Who's-
total blank.
Whose wives went to the Women's March?
Mine.
Mine.
Mine did not.
Okay.
Total blank in 2000.
Did mine go with yours?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Say it again.
We experienced a total blank.
Oh, solar eclipse.
That's
lunar
right.
Eclipse. Some sort of.
Solar
I was
eclipse.
on the beach. I looked at it through a cereal box. We did the little pinhole thing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And January 2018, there is a false missile warning in this location.
False missile warning.
New York, but
Japan.
no idea.
Hawaii.
I don't remember that.
All right.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah, it was a little
Yeah,
scary.
it was a big deal. Yeah.
At
Yeah,
their
they,
iPhones.
and
They went under full alert.
Somebody just
Yeah.
hit the wrong button.
yeah. It was
Okay.
it was a poor civil servant.
Yeah.
He made a terrible
Big
mistake.
red button that
Poor
said
guy.
"Do not
Yeah,
press."
yeah.
How are you
Somebody's
supposed
butt,
to know not to press
somebody's
that?
butt hit it, man.
How are you supposed to? What if it's not real?
You know.
Right?
All right, go ahead.
Which in 2018, which had the biggest Google search spike in terms of news?
2018.
2018. This is kind of an addendum. Which event?
2018.
Give us like a category.
Sports.
I don't know.
Women's soccer.
I'm giving it to Mr. Dobbs. Soccer World Cup.
Hey, nice.
Maybe.
All right.
I got
2019.
I want this game to end as fast as possible.
Which country accomplished their first landing on the far side of the
China.
moon?
China.
Very good. China. And that would be the decade.
Nice.
Yeah.
Should be 2020.
No, we don't do that. 2020 is part of the 20s.
Okay, got it.
The Roaring 20s.
We've officially decided.
It's
That-
the Roaring 20s.
that was-
what possibly could go wrong in
I-
the Roaring 20s?
I like these end of decade shows. That was a really good quiz.
That's good. I'm glad you liked
Yeah,
it.
you
You
did
don't
nice,
like all
nice
of them.
look back.
He did a nice job on
He
that,
did.
didn't he?
He did. Yeah.
And
those were
guess
good
how
ones.
much politics I brought into it?
You did
1%.
not. No.
Very little.
It was you did
Very
well.
little.
You did
Very
well. All right, folks. As always, you can find us at Ed's Not Dead PC on Twitter. Check out our website, edsnotdead.com. Mr. Krabs, any announcements for the good of our audience?
No. no.
No giveaways.
Yeah, we still got the stickers.
Yeah.
You gave away a bunch at the
I
conference.
actually have all the stickers.
Did you give away any at the conference?
Yeah, I did give
Okay.
away some. Yeah.
I'm going to conference in February, so I'm gonna.
What about Amel?
Oh yeah, man, that's a great one. Jeez. Look.
Yeah. See, you
So
forgot.
we are going to be. I'm not sure if we're the cover story in AMLE magazine, but we are going to be one of the feature stories. It's a very long article. Several thousand words were put on the paper.
Wow.
none of which I read.
About easing the transition into middle school. So it's going to be all about project success. That's right. Semi-self-contained learning communities.
All right.
That's what they're called.
Yeah, so that should be out at the beginning of February, and definitely looking forward to that.
Very exciting.
So you'll let the listeners know when that
We're
is.
going to tweet it ad nauseum, and you're going to be
Yes.
so irritated by it.
Very nice. Mr. Sids, what do you got coming up? Anything?
I think I'm going to be working on some blog posts.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I haven't determined what exactly we're going to be releasing, but stay tuned.
All right.
I got some, what do they call it? What's the analogy? Something in the fire.
An iron.
Iron. I have several irons in the fire.
I think you have maybe one.
2.
Okay, two.
If you want, tell me. I'm good at writing them. I'm not so good at what's it, ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I got
So-
lots of ideas.
Okay, yes.
I'm an idea man.
All right. I've come to realize this. I'm not really an idea man myself. More of a bureaucrat.
I'm definitely an idea.
You're
man.
an idea
Well,
man.
here's one.
But you
that
never email me any ideas about things to write about. So
Well,
It's your fault, really, that we don't have more close-up recently.
I
blame you.
I'm just not strong on the execution front.
That's what I'm saying. I can do it. I can make things happen.
Yeah,
I'm a doer.
You're a doer.
I started coming up with the policy ones, and I kind of stalled once the baby was born.
Yeah, it's understandable.
When the Green New Deal came out, I was
oh yeah,
the
that was a
Green
big
New
one you were
Education
working on.
Deal.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
became a
I
little too
forgot
much
it.
of a bear.
Yeah.
So I got to take some time to break it down a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Spread the word about Ed's Not Dead. Mr. Crable is going to be compiling a best of show coming out soon, so don't miss that. It'll have awesome segments from over our 3 seasons.
And leave us feedback
4
on
hours
iTunes.
long.
Yeah, and leave us.
Yes, please do. People have been going on and giving us reviews and stars, whatever that's called, ratings, I guess.
Yes.
So keep doing that. It's great to see.
I'm still caught off guard by the people that listen. I had a fellow principal recently catch me in a hallway at a meeting, and he's listened to every show.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said he was a little behind, but he loves Ed's Not Dead.
Better late than never.
So thanks for your support, and thanks to Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform, for their support. We will talk to you soon. For Peter and Casey, thanks for joining Ed's Not Dead.